Hello, welcome back. It is week 111 on Out on That Line podcast. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. Alex, how you doing this week?
It's mighty cold, Jeff. It's mighty cold in this basement here in Portland, Maine, but I don't care because we got a great album today and I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, let's see if we can't get you warmed up a little bit. It is the long-awaited Boy Genius album called The Record. Now I guess they just we'll talk about it later. There's something else that I need to do right off the top here, and that is give a shout out to now upgraded status best friend of the pod, Brandon, because
Whoa.
Coheed and Cambria released a repressing of the first album, Second Stage Turbine Blade. Now, this album hasn't been available, I think, since like a tour, I don't know, 15 years ago or something like that. So it's a highly sought after vinyl record. In fact, like original pressings of it go for north of like $300 sometimes. I mean, it's very expensive to be a Coheed fan sometimes, especially if you don't get right on those releases. Well, Equal Vision Records decided to announce this album repressing of 2,500 copies, and it was this kind of like special splatter yellow edition album. Now they said when it was going to come out and it was going to be on the site, and you just got to be there and get it. And well, a lot of people listening to this may not know who Coheed and Cambria is. They have a very dedicated, very rabid fan base. You know, it's not like a Springsteen level fan base, but it's very dedicated, and people spend the money to go see Coheed and buy Coheed merch. I have like 7 t-shirts. I have almost every album on vinyl. I have the entire comic series. I have records directly behind me, just hanging on the wall. I am one of those people. So when I went to try to get this record, the website was just trashed. And I couldn't get it. I couldn't even get into the website to get this album. By the time I got there, it was sold out, done. I assume a ton of bots, must have got in there, because all of a sudden Equal Vision Records announced that they're going to be canceling a lot of fraudulent orders. So a lot of people must have used bots to buy them, and that those albums were going to become available. And just to keep your eye on the website. And I don't have that kind of time. There's a lot of Coheed fans that do, though. So it was impossible to get it then. And then I happened to see Brandon sent me a text message showing that somebody on Facebook in one of the Coheed groups had emailed Equal Vision Records, and they set him up with an order for the album. So I decided to do the same thing, and I was able to get that album ordered. So I'm going to get that limited edition copy of that Coheed album, and it means a ton to me. And thank you, Brandon.
And I got to tell you, being in that text chain with you guys, I don't know why I'm in there while you guys are all talking about buying Coheed records, but somehow I got put in this text chain, and it's just wild to watch. You guys
Well, as
love
miserable as you might
Coheed.
be, we just felt like you needed to bask in the glory, and there was too much pent up like sexual energy in there to just spread among 3 people. So we had to bring a fourth in there. Is that's why you're there.
Okay, well, you know what? That's fair. It's
Well,
catfish theory, right? You get someone in there to keep it exciting. I literally say nothing while you guys talk about buying these albums, but I'm there.
it's just that your presence is what matters.
My presence is a present. Kiss my ass. Kanye West. Canceled.
Well, I did happen to watch, like, I don't know, I ended up watching like 30 minutes of the CMT Awards that just happened in Austin, and I got to tell you, it was exactly what you would expect. So if there were folks out there that were hoping that we were going to do, a CMT Awards predictions episode or a CMT Awards recap episode, this is going to be it for you. There was a lot of country music that doesn't it there's no like storytelling, and if it is a story, it's very simple. It's always the same thing. I saw this girl at the rodeo and I decided I had to be with her, and so I went and talked to her parents and we decided to go to church together. And it's just like a lot of it is just so bland and so simple and so dumb now. And when you have such a wealth of great country music, you have Tyler Childers and Sturgill Simpson, Margot Price, you have Casey Musgraves, you have Coulter Wall. I mean, you have so many options. Zach Bryan, you have so many options to be able to even Luke Combs. I mean, he's definitely more towards that like very pop sounding country, but at least there's something else that he's saying with it. It's just like, but none of those things are the things you're going to see at those awards. And it's just what passes for country music these days is pretty obscene. to me.
How'd Morgan Wallen do? Did he clean up?
I don't know, at least not the part I watched, and I didn't hear about him winning a lot of awards. The one that I heard about winning a ton of awards was this guy Jelly Roll.
Jelly Roll. I know him.
That
It's weird. He did like he had like a Christian rap phase, but then he also had a country phase. It's wild. For those who don't know, he's this big fat guy covered in tattoos, and he's like a ginger. He's like Action Bronson meets fucking Post Malone. It's a very interesting look. And then yeah, he had like two wildly different dips into two wildly different genres. He's a wild dude.
Yeah, and his acceptance speech for, I think it was, Male Video of the Year, his acceptance speech was like, "This one's for all the losers out there just like me that didn't think you could do it." And I'm like, "Bro, you are, like, cleaning up these awards. Like, let's not I think you stopped being an underdog a little while ago, so I feel like it's time to stop playing that card if you're at the level you're at now." And it's just I don't know. I think I was just so jaded by how just fake it all is. Like, none of them actually mean anything they're singing. I mean, and if they do, they're just very boring. That's the what it comes down to me is just extremely boring music. I don't think you're ever going to get like anything substantial or real or emotional out of that kind of music because hardly any of them write the songs for themselves. So it's like, how much, not saying you have to do that, but you can just kind of tell that it's lacking some sort of like punch. There's just no attitude to it. There's no edge to it anymore. It's just all the same thing over and over and over again.
Well, and that's where you really do have to give Luke Combs his props because there's a simplicity to all of those songs. It's very much like radio friendly, but you listen to it and it's like there's actually like careful construction in a lot of these. It's the line
Mhm.
from When It Rains It Pours. Uh Used four-wheeler and 3 free passes for me and two of my buddies to play a round of golf. He goes 4, 3, 2, 1. It's like a little thing you don't necessarily notice off the top,
Mhm.
but then you do. Because it's a banger. The chorus on that
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
second to none. And just like the Hooters waitress left her number on the check, and just like all these little things that are funny, but then also just like completely authentic coming from him.
Mhm.
You believe the shit that he's saying when he does Houston, you've got a problem. I have a wealth of Luke Combs knowledge in case you didn't know. When he does Houston, we've got a problem. He's got that line talking about like it's got the coldest beer you ever drank. And when he sings that, I feel that shit. And I don't even drink beer.
That's right, you do not drink beer, and you really never have. You've
I
tried,
don't
though.
drink at
I know
all.
you've tried
Yeah.
several times. But it's just I like his stuff, like, and even what's the long neck ice cold beer never broke my heart. Like, that's a great song. I like him for the same reasons I
Hell
like
yeah.
Eric Church. Because it's for whatever reason, it just seems like authentic to me, I guess. And same reason I like Miranda Lambert is like a lot of the stuff is very much that like today's pop country, like very formulaic, but I feel like they just have a presence to them that a lot of these artists don't have. They just have a good voice and they have the look that the record labels are looking for to go with the songwriters that they have. It's basically, we talked about AI last time and I did a singles video on it. Today's country music is basically AI music. There's no real, like, it doesn't matter who is singing it. Doesn't matter. They just move them through, give them like 3 or 4 hits so they can keep touring and people keep buying tickets and then move on to the next one. And it's just like there's very few of them that you're going to look back in 20 years and be like, "My God, what a great song." There's so much like 90s country that you listen to and it's like you recognize there's probably like 50 90s country songs that like I have on a decent rotation. But other than that, there was a ton that came out and a ton that was forgettable by that point. And I think as long as there's still artists like Sturgill Simpson and Tyler Childers and Margot and Casey Musgraves and like all these people that kind of push the envelope and try to do a little something else, I think it's going to be fine, but it's just, I feel like we've lost the point where someone like a Willie Nelson was going to be the most popular person in country. I think we're way past that. And I don't think there's ever any getting back to that.
Probably not at this point, but you know what makes it all okay?
What's that?
Phoebe Bridgers. You know what else makes it all okay? Lucy Dacus. What else makes it all okay? Julian Baker, the big bad Julianne. They're back, all three of them, all former guests on the show, and they have combined into a Voltron of sad indie girl genius level music. It is Boy Genius with the record.
Yes.
We're doing it. We're jumping in.
So this one, I mean, highly anticipated. When did they come out with it? Because they've only come out with an EP before that, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
Um,
This is the first one.
and so people were, I think over the years from what I was reading, people would always ask them, like, hey, when's the record coming out? Like referencing the Boy Genius record, because they've all come out with their own, solo records. We've done all of them on this podcast. So make sure you go back and check those out. Um, they came out with all their own did their own thing. Like Lucy Dacus has like collaborated with everybody. Phoebe Bridgers, same deal. Like, so they've done a ton of stuff in those years since that EP came out. But everybody over the years kept asking, when is the record coming out? So as a like kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing, they named this album The Record, because it was finally the one coming out that everybody was asking about. I thought they did such a good job at making it so that this felt like a Boy Genius record. This was not like a, Julian Baker with backup singers or Phoebe Bridgers with backup singers. Like I felt like the workload was distributed very well, in that it felt very seamless, all of them being together and working together on this record. It has a chance, like now that they've all done their solo things, like maybe their music has gotten to a point where it's so different that it's hard for them to collaborate. But I felt like at the base level, it all kind of like worked as far as how they work together.
Yeah, that's the thing, is the strength of it, I think, is the fact that they all went off and did very different things, but they have one very similar, they actually have a lot of similarities and similar sensibilities. Um, it can't be understated the importance of, it's an entirely queer, entirely female group who are making genius level music like this, and people feel seen, and they do a lot of cool shit playing with like gender on this. So like socially this is a big deal. And then the music's fucking awesome on top
Mm-hmm.
of it. Like, think of how a record label would market them regardless of their talent. But when they get to control the narrative, they get to like this is an album that I think is going to make a big splash, because Phoebe Bridgers is probably the most on people's radar.
Yes.
And then, I would say then like Lucy Dacus and then Julian Baker. No offense, anybody. That Julian Baker album had the unfortunate distinction of coming out right at the end of us being super burnt out on Sad Indie
Yes.
Girls. It's nothing against her. But she was on the Redeem team with this one for me too. Some of the best
Mm-hmm.
stuff on here is Julian Baker shit. And
Yeah.
that is what's cool, is they come together to support one another. They each kind of like quarterback a different song. And you can tell that it's like, oh, this is very much Phoebe Bridgers quarterbacked, but it
Mm-hmm.
all has like unity of sound. They use
Yeah.
all of each other's tricks. It's really fucking cool.
Yeah. And I think for me, I think Julian Baker has the best voice for this style of music, because it's just got that, I don't know, it just hits a certain range that just really cuts through. And I think, not saying that obviously Phoebe Bridgers, I thought of the three, her album was the best one. So I do think very highly of Phoebe Bridgers, but I think her voice is not really, when there's like three singers, like her range is not the one that's going to like totally cut through. I think I hear a lot more of the Julian Baker of it all. And it's nice because they know where to sit. Like no one's ever trying to be the total star of the show. I think they all understand that the sum is greater than, the parts. It's just like it's very interesting how they were able to be so collaborative with being very clearly like three solo artists. I don't know, they're obviously going to probably tour for this album, but I don't know if this is
Oh,
going to
they
be
are.
like, I don't know if this is going to be something where they just stay together just as Boy Genius and they just move forward that way and release solo albums every now and then, or if this is looked at as the side project. So I wonder going forward if, which is going to be the priority. Is it their solo careers or Boy Genius with, solo stuff when they have breaks from that?
I get a sense it's going to be like their Silk Sonic. It's going to work the same way. Like Bruno's still doing Bruno, Pac's still doing
Mhm.
Pac, and then there's Silk Sonic. I think it's going to be like a similar thing. Because again, they need that room to like go off and grow and do their own thing. And then by the
Mhm.
time they come back into Boy Genius, it's like now we can do some new cool shit. Because you saw a lot of the stuff from like Punisher, especially,
Mhm.
get carried over to this. Those like messy, chaotic moments where it was more like a
Yes.
noise collage. I'm like, that's Phoebe Bridgers.
Mhm.
Um, but it's just I think it'll be one of those things that they just consistently do their own thing. And this, it's too good not to. And I think you can build a lot of anticipation for Boy Genius stuff by going off and doing your own thing, and vice versa. Like, this is something that's going to keep them creatively invigorated and creatively fed and in like a healthy cycle, putting this kind of stuff out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out the kind of like wall of sound chaotic moments that seem to be very much derived from the Punisher side of things from Phoebe Bridgers. Those are my favorite moments on the album. There was a couple points for me, and I'm going to be honest here. There's a couple points, especially towards the end. It got a little too much like that, the real sad indie girl type of me. It wasn't anything I hated listening to. It just didn't get me as excited as, like what was the second song, $20, was great. It's just
Hmm.
the first song, the way it was just harmonies was awesome. It was a great intro, and it really just I felt like that was them introducing like, hey, we're a trio. Like we do this is what they so you get to hear their voices, which just the way they harmonized was so cool in that first song. Just like a little tease, and then they just kind of dive right in. They get rolling early in this album. I think there's a lot of energy. I think there's a lot more of that Punisher style energy on the front half of the album than there is on the back. And I think that's maybe because I was on such a high. It felt like it was a little bit of a drop off for me towards the end, but the lyrics were still fantastic. It was just the level of excitement in the music, and I suppose with those kind of lyrics, this probably doesn't lend itself to like a punk song, I suppose. But to me, it just like didn't hit right for me towards the end. But the overall, it was so strong lyrically, even through those parts, that I really can. I don't even have to forgive it. It's not even something that really takes away from it for me.
Well, and the thing I love about what they all do is these like very conversational songs. And I don't mean conversational in the Tom Waits way, where it's like, I was over at the cafe when this cool cat walked in. He had a sword and he was drinking straight bourbon. Like, these weird yarns that Tom Waits can spin in only the way he can. But they have like a very conversational style to the music where it's kind of like stream of consciousness. It's
Mhm.
like Emily has elements of that, and this line about like, I'll quit the music industry, you go back to school, we'll burn out up north where it's cold," like that kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing
Mhm.
heavily, but it's just that kind of thing. Like, we've all been in that situation where we're with someone just spitballing because we're nervous as hell. We're like super fearful, and we just start spitballing this like totally alternative life we could lead to bail on this one that's difficult. That's the stuff that they do so well, that they capture with their lyrics and the music that goes with it, obviously. But lyrically, like, it's not necessarily just sadness. It's a lot of
Mhm.
different thoughts and feelings. So to call it sad indie music, I'm not trying to be a dick. It's highly endearing, and it's far more complex than that.
Yes, it's emotional indie music. I think we can safely
Mhm.
call it that just because it covers so many bases. Like there are, happy moments on this album, not as many as there are the sad moments or the very like self-reflective, like kind of very self-critical moments in this. And I
The
think
pissed off
especially,
moments.
yeah, and I think especially on that Emily I'm Sorry song,
Mhm.
it really does just Emily, I'm sorry, I just make it up as I go along, and I can feel myself becoming someone only you could want. That could be taken a few different ways, and I love the little plays and lyrics like that. And I think that's why even on a slower song like Emily, I'm sorry, I think for me that's what helps hold it up. That's the foundation that everything is built on, is how strong the storytelling is in the whole thing, whether they're telling like a narrative kind of linear sort of story, or they're going into their emotional story, and I think they go so seamlessly between those things, and I don't feel like it lets off the gas pedal as far as how serious it is, but it does take different angles on kind of how they approach you know changes in their lives, changes that they think other people should make, that they themselves should make, and I think that to me makes for a very strong record. When you're able to present, something so honest in such an appealing package as like the harmonies on this album, the music and the background on this album, when you can put those things together, you really have something special.
And that harmony extends to the music. It's one of the best things they do is their harmonies, like the tricks that they inspire in one another. Like it seems to be like a playful, it's not even a rivalry. It's more just like, look what I can do. Like they're
Mhm.
all kind of there and they're so close knit and they know each other's musical habits so well that they can just throw something out there and the other person's going to take it and run with it. Like there was a real cohesion to these songs that leads me to believe, and I could be wrong, but it leads me to believe that they didn't just like split up and write things and then come together. It feels like these things were worked on. And if that's not how it went, that's how it felt. It felt
Mhm.
very much like something that grew out of a bunch of people in the same room. So if you were able to do that separately, or like one person was able to go off and make it feel like that, or is it a testament to jumping in and like how your friends color in something that you made and brought to
Mhm.
them? It's just like a testament to talent. Their talent is smeared all over this thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and the thing is, you know what, every time I see like a video of Lucy Dacus, it seems like she's playing a different instrument. I don't know if she's like the one that's, maybe the more like musically focused, but I feel like she's the one I see collaborating with people in a way that like doesn't always involve singing. So to me, it just seems like there's so many different things that they all bring to the table. I think like Phoebe Bridgers really can bring has I think she's got the sharpest like pop sensibility of any of them of how to make like a, traditional kind of structured song. Maybe the other two know how to do that just as well. They just prefer not to. Phoebe Bridgers is just the one that does that. But I think that element added to, I think that's what like the Julian Baker album was missing for me. And even with the Lucy Dacus album, it was missing for me. It was just the same reasons I can appreciate like a Bob Dylan album, probably not going to sit there and listen to the whole thing top to bottom, just because I can appreciate how strong lyrically they are. I can appreciate the storytelling, the musical talent in general, but it's just not that style just isn't that appealing to me. I think something what Phoebe Bridgers does is more appealing to me because it's more of that, can have a little harder edge to it. It's a little noisier, a little more chaotic. That appeals to me a little bit more. And I think when you can like get the talents of Lucy Dacus and Julian Baker in line with, Phoebe Bridgers maybe driving the bus when it comes to like song structure and, giving it a little bit of that chaos, it makes such a good soup. I mean, it's just a real cosmic gumbo.
Oh, we used to joke around on set that it was like a cosmic gumbo. Ah, fuck it. While we're at it, Frank Zappa.
That, and I
Um,
think the appreciation I have for a song like Leonard Cohen, I think might be my favorite one on the album just because it's funny.
yeah, it's a
Definitely
goodie.
pulls some like, pulls some lyrics straight from him. Like there's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. And you think, oh, this is such a great poignant moment. And then the next line is, and I am not an old man having an existential crisis at a Buddhist monastery writing horny poetry, but I agree. And it's just like I love the sense of humor they have, even with how serious everything gets on this record. And Leonard Cohen is like smack dab in the middle of all that. I think I can appreciate like that's how you know that somebody doesn't take themselves too seriously. Like they take what they do seriously, but not themselves. And I think that is such a good balance in that when you can have that show through the music, makes it so much more relatable too.
And that's just like such an absolutely immaculate line, too. Like,
Hmm.
again, that conversational element where it's just like, I'm throwing out a thought. They really exemplify the idea of like when you are creating, and I've seen 1,000 people say this in the literature for the art school I work for, but when people are creating, they need to be able to just go, dive in and start working and see what comes out. And, 999 things are going to suck. And the 1000th one is going to be the one that like
Hmm.
is your breakthrough. And this just feels to me like people who converse, like their music is just like working out a thought. And maybe not all of them turn into songs that we hear, but then you get something like Leonard Cohen that's like very specific and very funny and
Mhm.
very well crafted and just feels like something your funny friend would say to you while making that observation. It's almost like maybe it's like observational indie. You're observing how you feel, you're observing the world around you. That's kind of like what this felt like. It was like a very interesting cosmic gumbo of different stories.
And and I don't know if you felt this too, but I felt like there was an atmosphere to this record that was very much like you were in a very cool like record store. I felt like it
Mm.
was one of those things where you were just kind of, maybe you weren't sitting there like listening to them play this, but it was like this was playing while you were doing something that you like take seriously yourself, while you're looking for, when I'm going through a record store, I'm looking for inspiration, and I think this sort of album is like, I don't know if anybody else will feel that way when they listen to this, but it just gave me that, like, it was very cozy, I guess is what I mean. And like, I'm very comfortable in a record store. It's one of my, a place that if I just have free time, I'll be like, I'll go check one out, see if I can find some CDs or, an album that I want to get. And, it's just like, maybe because it's indie music and you always associate that with more of those like kind of indie stores, maybe that's why it gives me that feeling. But to me, it's just anytime an album can put you in a time, in a place, like in a story, like when it can do so many things at once, you can't help but think it's good. Whether you end up liking, the style of music or whatever is totally aside. I think you have to have an appreciation for the talent it takes to make something so all encompassing. And I think that's kind of exactly what they did here.
And the other thing, like similar to the record store thing for you, I was listening with my eyes closed and I'm like, "Oh man, I can just see them on like a festival stage." Like it's big music with like production elements to it, but at the
Mhm.
same time, it lends itself to like I just saw them at like a folk festival stage doing this. This is very much kind of has that three-part harmony. Everybody's got a role, everybody's got a strength, everyone's got a
Mhm.
personality feel to it that lends itself to like a special moment at a festival like that. And then I found out they were supposed to play at Woodstock 50 in I think like 2019 or 2020.
Mhm.
And I'm like, of fucking course they were. I listened to this and I'm like, they would have torn the whole place down.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they do now. I mean, I'm sure like Coachella or something like that would absolutely have them play there.
They are touring and they're coming to Boston in August. And I think I gotta go.
You better be ready when those tickets come out because they are going to sell out so fast.
They sure are, but I'm real handy with the steel, if you know what I mean.
Hell yeah.
I have
Well, they
time
had
to sit on Ticketmaster.
End of an Ear Records down here in Austin had like a listening party for the album when it came out, and they released pictures of it, and there was like a couple hundred people there for a listening party.
Damn,
Like it
that's
wasn't
pretty
like
sweet.
Phoebe Bridgers was there, it's just like they played the record in the store. That was it.
I I went to album release parties at Rough Trade in New York that couldn't get like 50 people. Like
Mhm.
it's supposed to be like the big cool thing, and I had stars in my eyes. I'm like, wow, and I think it's like passe to the people that live there, and it's like the biggest hipster thing ever. So this is
Yeah.
like, I think people who genuinely love this kind of thing. And it's a great way to get a new Phoebe Bridgers, a new Julian Baker, and a new Lucy Dacus album while you're waiting for the next Phoebe, Lucy, or Julian album.
Yep.
Like again, that cycle of staying in the consciousness and growing and continuing to put this kind of stuff out. It's not something everybody does, and it's great, and they do it so flawlessly. This is a clear and present buy it for me. I will be buying it.
Oh, one, yeah, 100% going to be buying this one. It's, for sure getting it on vinyl. Probably get it on CD too, because honestly, it's such an easier way for me to play music in my house than than using the record player, and it sounds better too. I'm just going to be honest with you, people. I love vinyl, just like the kind of the cachet of it, but it's so much easier if you get yourself a little like 5 disc CD changer, plug it into those same speakers you're playing your records through. You're gonna know what I mean. You're gonna hear what I'm saying, and it's just so much easier to deal with that.
Vinyl is for listening to vinyl. Like you make a conscious decision, like that is the activity. I'm going to
Mhm.
be in proximity to the player because I'm going to have to flip this bitch. And if it's a double LP, I'm doing a lot of flips and changes.
Mhm.
So you have to be like ready to do that. And it like requires your attention as an exercise, which is awesome because you listen to stuff very intently. But yeah, I mean the 5 CD changer. I mean, Pepperidge Farm remembers the 5 CD changer.
Yes, sir.
It was a game
Go
changer.
to go down to your nearest Goodwill, folks, and take a look in the electronics section because that's where I got mine for like 25 bucks. It's a Sony. I looked it up. People are selling those on eBay still, like my model year and everything used for like over $100. So it's like just go down there, see what you can find, and I'll tell you what, CDs are also like $2 at Goodwill. At any record store you go to, used CDs you're gonna pay like $4 or $5 at most for many of them, unless it's like a big fat like compilation book or something like that. It's just such an easy way to go. It's also a lot easier to store CDs. I mean, you just get a big old CD book. Bob's your uncle. I mean, it's just the sound quality on a CD. I think we've forgotten. Everybody streaming, you're going to hear such a difference. Listen to the song on streaming and then listen to it on a CD on a good sound system, and world of difference in the whole experience.
So it sounds like it's a double buy it from Jeff. He's getting the CD and the vinyl experience.
I'm going to get the big one and the little one. I mean, it's just that's the way we got to do it.
There you go. You got to do an unboxing when it comes.
Yes. Well, I'm very excited. I think we can go ahead and kind of wrap this one up here. And folks, until next time.